Hello, everyone. It's 6 o'clock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have all the council members here. Rita, are you here?
She's trying to get in. She got
Okay.
kicked off. So
We'll wait for her. Sandy, I know you have a hard stop at 7 o'clock. I'm going to have a hard stop at 7:30. If we're not done, I'll turn the meeting over to Ken so I can get out to that viewing by 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Because I have a meeting tomorrow morning with the NAACP at the same time. So I won't be able to change that. And Ken, the Pastor Brown will not be able to be there. Pastor Davis will not be able to be there. He came back from South Carolina, so he has to quarantine for 14 days.
Mayor, Rita, you're on. Can you,
Oh, Mayor, is he going to call in?
Rita, can
He's going to
you,
hope to, yeah.
can you confirm that you're on?
I'm on.
Can we make her a panelist?
No, Mayor, she's we're improvising here.
Okay.
But you're gonna just have to speak loud into the microphones.
I'm sorry. I was on and it was fine, and then it kicked me off. I don't know what happened. It
Rita,
says net is okay.
Rita, you're live now, so
Okay.
everyone can hear you.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the invocation followed by the pledge of the flag. God of peace, we invite you to preside over this meeting. Even if we have different opinions, give us the unity of spirit. Help us to each listen politely to others, share their points of view. Help us to work as a unified team and combine the ideas for a great outcome for our city. Help us to work as a whole rather than as individuals trying to promote their own agendas. May we have a spirit of camaraderie in this room and work collaboratively on shared mission to better our residents of our city. And let us this evening take time to remember a man who loved this city and gave much back. And when asked about how the amicable diversity of our city takes place and that everybody, no matter of race, color, creed, gets along, John Robinson would simply say, it's in the water. Rest in peace, John Robinson. Your last major event was the groundbreaking of your vision for the Black Diamond property on South Side. Rest in peace, JR. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
United States of America,
and to the
and to
republic
the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
One nation.
under God,
one nation
indivisible,
under God,
with liberty and justice for all.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Brown,
Here?
Mr. Ettinger,
Here,
Mr. Milan,
Here.
Mr. O'Connell,
Here.
Dr. Ruggles,
Here.
Mrs. Volcano,
Here,
Mayor Panto.
Present. Approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Ruggles to approve, seconded by Volcano. Discussion, changes. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Ettinger,
aye.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano,
aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
and Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Action on our minutes of the September 23rd and a special meeting on October 1st to present the budget. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Brown,
Second,
seconded by Volcano. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano,
aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger.
Aye.
At this point in our meeting, we have public comment on agenda items only. If any member of the public would like to speak, please give your name and address. And there will be another period of time at the end of the meeting where you can ask council or make comments or concerns on anything dealing with the city of Easton. Mr. City Minister, is there anybody on that would like to speak? Anybody have their raised hand?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Okay,
Question, Mayor. Are we gonna go through the agenda first and then go into committee?
we're going to do the last night's events under each committee.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to do the consent agenda next. 2 bills. Well, a bill and a resolution. Madam Clerk?
Loser again?
Madam Clerk, the consent agenda? Mr. Campos, is she on? I don't see her name listed under attendees.
Mayor, could you hear her? Rita, could you repeat that, please?
For consent agenda, I just need to know who moved it and who seconded it.
No one yet.
No one, you got to read it first.
What do you want, a motion? I motion to move the consent agenda.
Moved by Volcano,
Second.
seconded by O'Connell.
Thank you.
Comments or discussion on the consent agenda, which consists of bill number 26, amending certain sections of chapter 475 on sewers, and a resolution approving the appointments and reappointments to the authorities, boards, and commissions. Any changes? Comments? Roll call, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mayor, can we take a 5-minute recess so we can rectify this problem?
Well, if the clerk can't do it, I'll do it. I'll keep records of it.
Okay.
But
She just, could you repeat that again, Rita?
I'm calling for a vote for Mr. Brown,
right,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger,
Aye.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano,
Aye.
Mayor Panto.
aye. There are no reports received by council this evening, so I'll go on to the reports of the committee. And the first one will be the finance committee. We'll have the meetings, last night's meeting tonight, since we had technology problems last night.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to go into some questions that we had at the last meeting pertaining to changes in the budget line items by Mr. Milan. So we'll do that. And then on tonight's agenda, bill number 31, which is amending the 2020 City Hall fund budget. If we can start off with Mark, you can begin.
Thank you, Mr. Brown and council. Recently, council received the preliminary September year-to-date results package, which, following on what Mr. Brown said, brought up some additional questions. So I followed up with several emails, including a year-to-date transfer list, as well as fund financial statement, which covered the 3 basic types of funds that we have here in the city, as well as the 15 that I would say are actively managed by City Council. I would also want to note that all city funds are reported in our various audits. So just want to make that clear. In addition, earlier today, Mr. Milan called me with some additional questions, and I believe that we had a very productive conversation regarding some of the issues that he raised. He noted that he had concerns about data integrity, and I'm hoping that the review that I'm about to go through will shed some light on some of the underlying issues. All right, so with that said, I will share my screen here. Okay, this is the memo that I sent yesterday with the list of 15 different accounts, and it also spells out the fund types. If there are no questions on that, then I'll jump over to some of the issues and questions that Mr. Milan had raised. Okay, seeing none. What I did is I took Councilman Milan's questions about the specific line items and provided a reason or rationale for each of them. So there are approximately 41 questions or issues raised here. Of those, 22 were addressed through budget transfers. And I will share this file and the subsequent files with council following our call today. So again, of the 41 listed here, 22 were addressed via intra-departmental transfers, which were then shared with council yesterday shared with council via email with the budget transfer list that I sent out. In addition, 12 of these listed are, I would say, reporting issues where funds were reported in one instance here in September's results, but not in August. These reports are not part of the 15 that are actively managed by council and actually should have been excluded. So that takes some other issues away. There's one listed here that is a combination of budget transfers as well as the impacts of the 2020 budget revision that we did. And then there are 6 that are remaining, and of those 3 need to be all 6 need to be corrected. Here I've got 1, 2, 3 that are budget transfers that were initially thought to be approved, but were not. And so the entries that were booked in Freedom in our financial accounting software need to be backed out. So I believe we did those earlier today, and they will be reflected in the final September results that'll be shared in a couple of weeks. Next, in the 151 fund, because the overall 2020 revised budget did not change either the revenue or expense line items, it was incorrectly assumed that there were no underlying changes in the actual accounts themselves. Obviously, that was not the case, and so that has been also corrected. So the budget now in Freedom and what will be reported going forward will reflect the correct budget that was approved by council during that revision. Are there any questions on this first tab? If not, I'll move on to, I believe, the second set of questions that Mr. or Councilman Milan had offered. And here he, in the first, asked about the planning director and why there is a budget there and how that's lining up. When the planning and codes departments were combined, I believe last year, that didn't follow through in both the ADP payroll system and in our budgeting system. So we're actually going to clean that up. And again, that will be reflected, the correct figures will be reflected in the September final results. And that will include both the budget adjustments to line up with where individuals are actually recognized. Next, for daily parking, and I believe this is related to a question that Dr. Roberts had as well. We switched credit card processing companies earlier this year, actually a couple of months ago, and have been having an issue trying to get reporting on the transactions, the underlying transactions. So we've received cash into our accounts, but have not been able to book the revenue appropriately for August and September. With that said, we today received the breakdown and now understand how those funds will be recognized, and we will be booking those entries in the next week or two, and they will again be recognized in the September final results. Moving on, Councilman Milan, question 3 here asked about a specific line item. This line item saw, again, a few different increases and decreases. The budget started off as $9,000 here. during the year, it was increased to $16,000 with a budget transfer, an intra-departmental budget transfer. The 2020 revised budget brought that back down to 9. And then we realized that we had shaved off a bit too much in this account, and another budget transfer, an intra-departmental budget transfer was performed, bumping that number back up to 13. So we started off at 9. We had a budget of 16 that was brought back down and is now back up to 13. So several moving parts as we try to normalize or figure out where some of these accounts are going to wind up for the year. Lastly, in the 901 fund, which is our parking authority fund, there was a question about an account that had no monies budgeted and a revised budget of 10,200. That 10,200 was listed and noted and approved by council with the 2020 budget revision. And that account, which is management consulting, is being used for, was being used to pay off the parking study, as well as the parking garage, the Pine Street garage review by Timothy Haas. So I believe that that answers another set of questions that were posed. In addition, Mr. Milan and I also discussed payroll accounts. And if council recalls, I believe our controller had touched on this as well, where because of the way that the payroll accounts are set up and the way that they're processed, which is via a journal entry, as opposed to a standard requisition process where an account or a purchase is verified against an existing budget amount to make sure that that we have enough funds to pay for it. The journal entries from payroll are booked to the appropriate accounts, regardless of whether funds are available, just because of the nature of those types of transactions. And that has been done since long before I got here, and that continues to occur. What the administration then does is throughout the year, we do budget transfers, if possible, between or within departments to adjust for those, any overages that we may face, or if we need to move money from one department to another to cover those overages and payroll related expenses, we do present those budget amendment requests to council. And in order to shed, I guess, as I said before, shed a little more light on some of these accounts, there are 25 accounts listed here that relate to payroll. So this would be information coming out of our payroll system, out of ADP, and being booked directly into Freedom, into our accounting software, and then hence into the results that are shared with council. So I tried to slim these down. Obviously, there are multiple instances and occurrences of these accounts across all different departments. But in order to simplify it, I've kept it, to basically just the last 4 or 5 or 6 digits of each longer string of accounts, and included the account description, so that council would then hopefully easily be aware or be able to look at the reports and say, okay, yeah, this is a payroll related expense. I understand why it may be over budget. Okay, if there are no questions on this, I believe that Dr. Ruggles also had a couple of questions that I'd like to try to address. One that I started to address with the change over to a new credit card processor for our credit cards. What we, well, I think I covered it, saying that we now have the accurate reporting or necessary reporting, and we know now how to get that going forward, and we'll be booking those revenues at the end of September. To give you an idea, August's credit card for meters was approximately $14,000, and then, I'm sorry, $11,000 and about $14,000 in September. Now, we are also trying to break that apart between parking meters and the parking kiosks or the garages. So there is a little bit of work to do there, but those are some rough numbers that we have at this point. and we'll be finalizing those. As far as coin collection or coin meter deposits, we've noticed that Brinks has had some staffing issues, both in coin pickup as well as, it seems, the entry of deposits into our accounts. So over the last several weeks, we've been working with them and trying to track this down and putting pressure on them, because we did note that the revenues for parking meter coins were not being booked in August and in September. So just recently, earlier this week, we got notification from Brinks that approximately $33,000 worth of coin collections out of the meters was deposited to our account. So we're now just going to confirm that number and book that back to September, so that at least we have it, in the most current month, and that would account for obviously part of August and September. Okay, with that said, I would address any other questions. I would also ask if council has questions at any point, when these, either during these meetings, during our committee meetings, prior to them, whenever information is shared. I would greatly appreciate you letting me know, so that I can try to provide comprehensive answers as to what's going on here with some of the figures. Dr. Ruggles?
Yes, I had a few questions. First of all, I do want to thank you for the new format on the budget that you supplied. I found that enormously helpful. I also would like just to make an observation that we seem to be doing very well in our business privilege tax, our utility turn-ons, our EIT, and our EIT non-resident. Those numbers look pretty good.
I would agree.
Yeah. I do have a few questions, though, if I may, and hopefully I don't hit some of the points you already covered, but I have them written down, so I'm going to go through them. First of all, in 101-1000 32180, it's the TV cable franchise. There's a number in there that says that we paid out $56,422. I'm not sure why we would have money going out of that.
Without looking at that account specifically, Dr. Ruggles, I would guess that there was an incorrect booking, and that was backed out and corrected, so that the funds were, is an accounting entry that was added there incorrectly, and then subsequently corrected. But I will take a look at that and let you know.
Okay. I mean, just looking at the monthlies there, it seemed like that was a number that should fit in there, but well, whatever. The other one I had a question on was 101-1000 34210, which is the Paxinosa cell tower.
Yep.
And I seem to recall when we had that contract, and maybe Sal, you could jog my memory here, that we were getting a certain amount for usage on that cell tower. So as the usage went up, we would get more money. But looking at the data that is presented, it's pretty uniform. And I would have expected to see a little bit more variation in the receivables if, in fact, I mean, almost all these numbers are exactly the same. And I mean, I understand that, usage might not vary too much, but I mean, I would think that these numbers would change if we are in fact getting revenue from usage.
Definitely.
You're not on, Sal.
Mayor, I think, yes, you're muted.
Prior to this year, I think our $56,000 was a lot less. The only thing we've had added on to the tower was about a year ago, we did get Verizon to go onto that tower to give College Hill residents a better internet connection. So I'd have to look at what, unfortunately, we know it's $56,000 for this year's budget, 2020. I'd have to look at the history of that. I recall it was in the 40,000s when we first started. So, and it is a monthly payment. It's the same lease. Once we settled what the annual lease is, it's divided by 12. So we'll
Yeah,
check
but I
that.
mean, the lease is the lease, but I mean, I thought that we signed in the original contract that depending on the amount of usage, we would get additional funds.
No, it's by the number of carriers that are on there. It's not by the number of usage
Oh,
they have, it's
not
by the number of
usage.
carriers.
Okay.
So number, you're right, it's the number of carriers though.
Okay.
As they add carriers, we get more money.
Another thing in that same line, Mark, it appears to me as though somebody transposed numbers in February. And it's in there as 5492. And you can see the next 2 months were 4592. Okay. So, and the month before that was 4592 too. So I think somebody may have transposed numbers there. I don't know. You may want to look at that.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
I heard your explanation on the parking meters and the booking on that. I understand if we're not collecting coin and you know, all that, but what about the credit cards? I mean, it seems as though that should just be, you know, see where it's,
Well, the credit
36
cards. Sorry, Dr. Ruggles, I didn't mean to.
No, it's 36, 321 and 322.
Yep. So
36, yeah.
with the credit cards, the funds were getting deposited to our bank. So we were getting the cash. It was just we were not sure how to break that out between the garages and the parking meters because it's all combined now under one credit card processor. So we were getting one lump sum and working with the vendor to understand, okay, well, how do we break that apart? And now we have that ability to do that, which we were, you know, previously not.
Okay, so are you going to create a new line item here or what?
No, for
I mean, in our budget, where's that money going to go?
It would be going for the garages to the daily garage use. So there are daily, Intermodal Daily and the Pine Street
Right.
has a similar account. And so those credit card transactions for the kiosks would be getting booked there. Or will be getting booked there, you know, for the end of September and then going forward.
Okay. In 101, 503 or 5053, 36430, solid waste collections.
Mhm.
Just looking across, those numbers are fairly constant until we hit September.
Well,
And
that-
it's $4,207.
Right.
I
Well, again, I would just like to remind council that these are preliminary numbers. So we have not yet closed the books on September, so not everything has been recognized and booked at this point. So I'm confident that number will be back in the you know, typical range for the month. That's not a line item that varies significantly month to month.
Right, yeah, okay. In 101, 509, or 5059, 36410, sewer charges. Well, again, that's probably the same explanation as that it just probably hasn't been booked yet.
Correct.
So this is skipping towards the end. The 901 parking area, 5068-37611, parking in Third Street.
Yeah, that would be the daily parking line.
Okay,
A 7?
Yes.
so I have, can you scroll over just to August there?
0.
Yeah, August is 0.
Mine is 7.
I'm not sure why August would be 0.
Well, again, that's because
I mean, we started charging again by then.
Correct, and that's related to these are the credit card processing. This is part of the credit card processing issue that we are, resolving now, where again the cash came into our account, so it's at the bank. We just were not able to divvy it up between the parking, this line item, the intermodal garage here you'll see above it, and then the parking meters themselves, the on-street parking meters. So we will.
Can you just scroll over to August and September in there, Mark?
Oh, are you not able to see? Okay.
I only see July. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Okay, and that's better. I guess what confused me here was the fact that we had, are the numbers that we got in September there is that a combination of August and September?
Yeah, it would be a combination of August and September. And again, it's not yet fully reconciled. So we don't quite have the split between the parking meters and the 2 parking garages as far as credit card transactions. But again, we will have that for the final September numbers.
Okay.
And I can, in the meantime, rather than wait 2 weeks, once we get that finalized, which I believe would be in the next couple of days, I can send that out to council and just make you aware that this is how it broke out.
Mark, what is the plan moving forward? Will we get a different number for kiosk and garages like we do if I have a grocery store chain, each store has a different number so that the credit card goes to that account?
Correct. So there are the kiosks and the garages have separate numbers and then separate locations as well. So the Pine Street versus the intermodal. So yes, we are now able to differentiate those, and we'll be able to assign the monies to the right buckets.
Because we definitely want to track that.
Yep.
It would be nice to think about maybe next year changing the line items to reflect that so that we can actually see in what's being reported to council each of those locations individually. I see the intermodal here in Third Street, right?
Correct.
But it is the only pay method. I apologize, I don't realize this, but the only pay method is by credit card
In the garages now, yes.
in the garages? Okay.
Optional on the street.
Yeah. So the garages would be recognized in the daily parking intermodal here, and then the parking Third Street. And then obviously the meter parking, we talked about that, those revenues and where those accounts are lined up.
Yeah, Mark,
Okay.
to make it, just change that line item that you're highlighting right now to monthly parking Third Street garage.
Or daily. You
Or
mean.
or daily, so that it's easier, because the ones for the intermodal are marked that way.
Yep.
Parking facilities monthly, parking intermodal monthly and parking intermodal daily. So if we did that for Third Street garage, make it a little bit.
Clean it up.
Sure. We can do that.
That's all I have, Mark.
Okay. Any other council members have any questions? Mr. Milan, did that address hopefully most of your concerns?
It did actually. I just have a couple other questions.
Okay.
So how do you account for months where there's no revenue? And I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So for police non-traffic violations, you have a steady stream. I mean, except for March and February, you kind of increase in April, May, and June, but then in July, there's nothing there.
Mhm.
But yeah, in August and September, we have stuff. Is it safe to say that they didn't issue any non-traffic violations in July?
I'm not sure that it would be safe to say that. I would honestly need to take a look at
Okay.
that particular account, or, any of the specific accounts to really understand, talk to the traffic division and
I
understand
think
what's
part of
going on.
that, Mark, I think part of that was during the pandemic. People were in the homes. I think we talked about that before, more so on the streets. So the revenue stream or the ticketing went down somewhat. I think Chief talked about that at one point.
But in July,
Was there a pandemic in April too, Mr. Brown?
No, not at all.
Oh, there wasn't a pandemic in April?
Well, there was, but I'm saying
Oh, okay.
across the board, we started. I'm talking about when the governor finally made everybody stay at home.
The governor stayed at home until June. I mean, I don't know. We had COVID all year, yet we still have violations.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're not. I'm trying to remember what the chief of exec said was that it was a turn down, so to speak, because there wasn't a lot of traffic on the street and violations went down, and then you
Right.
see it go back up again.
Right, but in July there's nothing though. So
Well,
to your
that couldn't be.
assessment,
That's not
though,
right. That
so
couldn't
you-
be.
well, that's my question. So
Okay. I will definitely look into that. And, if you have any additional ones, please let me know, and I'll take a look at
Well,
those.
in that line too, Mark, and I understand that September isn't fully booked yet, but
Yep.
there's 0 for September in that same line, and it just, that is concerning.
that's not accurate, Dr. Ruggles. It's
That's
4886.
$4,900.
There's money in there. I would discount the September numbers until 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
These are
I
just
think
preliminary
you're
numbers.
right. Yeah.
So, I mean, to Mark's credit, I mean, let's not look at September's numbers until 2 weeks from now. So they're just preliminary, and really we shouldn't be analyzing until the month closes.
But you're correct, the July number is definitely wrong. It's 0. And it had to be some activity during July.
So, I mean, the questions that I posed are answered. I mean, I appreciate your time, Mark. I think we'll continue to kind of weed through the data as you guys present it to us, and hopefully we'll have a much more robust file soon.
That's my goal. So thank you for your input.
Sure.
The last point I would make is that Dr. Ruggles pointed out about the earned income tax, business privilege tax, et cetera. I think with council supported the business recovery plan that helped our restaurants stay active and some of our downtown businesses and neighborhood businesses. I know we were at Easton Taco and Black and Blue and Ashley's, they all did well, and Lutzi's reopened. The hope is that we're very conservative on those revenues, that we end up 2020 with an opportunity to decrease or maybe even eliminate. Our goal would be to eliminate the furloughs for next year. So we were very conservative when we projected our revenues for this year to bring our expenses into balance. But we're hoping that we're going to be able to move some money into payroll so that we don't have those people furloughed. That's the last thing we want to do. So that's good. It's good news. I'm glad you caught that, because it is actually for our unemployment in Easton City is still double digits, according to the federal government. But it's not showing on our residential earned income tax. It's not showing. Or what's happening is we have a better payment of people who are paying that weren't paying before. So that's something to look at as well. Okay, Mr. Brown, everything else?
Nope, that is it for tonight, Mayor.
Okay, Economic Development, Councilman Volcano.
thank you.
Muted.
Unmute.
He's muted.
You muted yourself. You were unmuted. Now, okay, there you go.
Okay. At this time, I have no report, Mayor, but I will defer to you if you'd like to say anything about what your little meeting was with the merchants downtown and for the Christmas season.
Okay, we've had 2. I do have that in my report. Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, Planning and Codes, Mr. O'Connell.
I have no report, Mayor.
Okay, Public Safety, Councilman Ruggles.
I have no report.
Public Works, Councilman Eddinger.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We were trying to meet last night. Mr. Hopkins was going to explain the legislation that I'm going to be putting forth. Is Mr. Hopkins here tonight?
Yes, he is. Louis, you want to bring him into the panel?
He's coming in.
Okay, Mr. Hopkins, you're up. The report you were going to give last night. Go ahead, David.
Hang on one sec.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
All right. Version 2.0. Trying to get through this. Thank you, Mayor. So we have three sort of important things on the agenda. The first is we have two contracts that would fill out the three contracts that make up our trash hauling and recycling. At council's last meeting, we did approve solid waste disposal at Trin Landfill, and we went from about the $40 we're paying currently to about $53 a ton, about a 33% increase. For the recycling contract, currently the language in our existing agreement gives us a zero floor, meaning that, you know, in when the market's having good times, we have the potential of getting paid, but we will never actually pay the vendor should the markets drop like they have. And even though the vendor is currently losing money, we're not being billed for that. That language is obviously no longer acceptable in today's climate in the recycling markets. So when we went out to bid, we were well aware of that. The markets have been pretty much like this since about 2016. We did receive two bids. Waste Management was the low bidder with a processing cost of about $105. Councilman Ruggles and I did, you know, he did ask last night about, you know, how that relates to trash and why it's so expensive. And I think part of that is running the single stream processing MRF and the cost that actually goes into processing and marketing recycling. This is kind of where we had a technology failure last night, so I didn't get to finish that. Even though it's $105, that does get mitigated to some extent by the recycling that is worth something. You know, right now, there are very limited materials that have value. Plastics 1 and 2, aluminum and tin, and corrugated cardboard, and that's provided they're all clean. One of the big problems we're going to have this year, and it's a challenge for our department, is to get the public education to the level it needs to be to tell people that it's not quantity anymore. Years and years, for decades, everyone was pushing quantity. Our grants are based on tonnage. You know, single stream was a ways to make it easier for the public to participate. And it's just not the case anymore. Quality is the name of the game. Our hauler even has a saying, which I think could be phrased a little better, but when in doubt, throw it out. Simply because so many things that seem to be recyclable from a public perception standpoint have no secondary market, and therefore it really just makes them contamination. And so, you know, in large part, I think most people participate because they're trying to do the right thing. But, you know, recycling as an industry, it has its base in economics. And if you can't use the material, it becomes trash. And unfortunately, it's very expensive to dispose of recycling. And I gave one example last night that our recycling MRF landfills more recycling in a year than the city landfills trash in a year. So it's a big problem. And I think we need to get the word out there that, you know, it is important to recycle, and the materials that do have value can help mitigate this cost. So if they're selling the materials for a certain amount of money, that will come off the processing fee when we get billed. So, and the less contamination fees we pay, the more we'll save on the processing costs. So it's really a performance-based system now, whereas before it was a quantity-based system. And And I think that's important for us to get that messaging out there. So we're recommending Waste Management for $105 a ton. And then the other contract we bid out was the collection and transport contract, which is currently Raritan Valley. We did get 3 bids, and Raritan Valley was low by about $500,000 a year. Services would remain the same with weekly recycling and weekly trash pickup. That cost was about $1.263 million for year one. I actually think we did pretty well on this bid, considering we've had a steady hauling price since 2013. It has not gone up. So even though we did see an increase, I think it's I think it's a good contract for the city. And the term of all the contracts is a 3-year base with 3 mutually agreeable options to renew. So I would recommend that we get Raritan Valley on board, which means that we'll retain the same 3 contractors we currently have. So there's a little work ahead for us to do. The other items that I have on the agenda,
Dave?
Yeah, sure.
Can I just a quick question, and this is probably more directed to Jeremy. I noticed in reading the contracts in the performance bond, for the contract for waste management, there is no performance for the 1-year extensions. In the Republic Service contract, there is language there talking about the performance bond in those 1-year segments. My question would be, should there be some language in the waste management one covering those 3 1-year additional years that are part of the contract?
The bid specification only asked for each vendor to provide performance bonding for the initial 3-year base term, only because they're bound to the 3 years. The mutually agreeable option years may or may not happen depending on whether we agree to pursue. So we didn't have them bond for that. That would be bonded on an annual basis.
But the one contract has it in it and the other one does not.
Well, they weren't required to do that. They submitted it and they went over and above what we requested, but the base requirement was to submit a performance bond to cover the 3-year base term. One interesting part about that, Councilman, is in our current agreement, it was such a bidder's market when we went out for what we have currently. We put in a unilateral option to renew, where it was the city. If the city said we want to renew, the contractor had no choice. So that was, as compared to now, it's mutually agreeable. If they're not doing well, they don't have to renew and they'll force us into a bid situation. But we did only require for the 3-year bid term.
I think it's safe to say that we really didn't want to go out more than 3 years anyway. If we would have liked to have made it 2 years, but the price would have been higher. Because I think trash collection in Easton, as across this country, is going to change. I don't know why we're in the trash business at all anymore. Maybe we just get out of it completely. But those decisions, and maybe we just go down to 3 recyclables that are worth something, that we can tell people you can't throw a pizza box out if it has grease in it. We talked about that today. Jeremy's laughing. People are throwing out contaminated things. They're not washing out their salad dressing bottles. I mean, all that is considered contaminated. And once they see one contaminated thing in that bucket, the whole bucket gets chucked. So we got, as David said, we got to definitely educate the people better. But maybe we got to also find out that we're not going to recycle as much as we do now. And I'd like to go to the next environmental advisory council meeting and hear what they have to say about recycling and what we can do to be environmentally conscious. But every city in this country is going through it right now, since China no longer is taking our recyclables.
Yeah, we were fortunate to have a zero floor this long. Everyone's been paying for years, and it's an expensive endeavor. So that's the state of our trash and recycling. The good news is that there'll be no change in the way people see that service provided. The schedule will remain the same, and and that's a good thing. I have 3 other things on the agenda. Northampton Street lighting, we got a good bid to continue our march down the Northampton Street Business District, this time to 12th Street. This is funded mostly through grant funds with a match from our Liquid Fuels Highway Aid Fund. You know, if approved by council, we'll get that started. There's a little bit of lead time on the fixtures, but that work can be done in the winter. And I think it makes the streetscape look good. And the last 2 items I have are proposals for in situ piping, which is basically no excavation. We use the existing underground pipe as the host pipe, and we blow a new liner through it, which when cured just becomes its own pipe with about 100 years of life left in it. You know, we based the locations that we picked on video footage that our sewer crew took. So we know the condition of the pipes pretty well, and these really need to get done. And there's an explanation in the packet of, you know, the various size pipes that are being recommended for rehab, both on the storm side and on the sewer side. So this is a nice step for the city, because now that we're focusing on MS4, we're able to do both sanitary and storm piping. And just for, you know, just for the sake of looking at this from a higher view, you know, we're doing about, you know, 1,000 feet on both sides. And so if you look at the fact that the sanitary sewer system has 65 miles of pipe, and the storm sewer system has about 33 miles of pipe, you know, 1,000 feet, you know, if you look at the expense and the length of it compared to the whole system, it's a fairly daunting task to look at, you know, replacing large portions. But I will give a lot of credit to the crew. They're very diligent. They're out there filming and jetting every day, and you know, that type of investigatory work really does help us put what money we do have to work in a much needed place. So so that's the agenda.
So,
Hey, Dr. Ruggles.
yeah, just on the funds for this, for the lining is coming from where?
Two areas. So on the storm sewer side, it's coming from the 265 fund, which is funds we raised through the MS4 fee.
Right.
And on the sanitary side, it's coming from the 151 budget, which we budgeted capital for. And I think a lot of that comes in through water tapping fees.
Right. Well, I just want to make sure that was clear, because kind of the way I heard it from you was that the sanitary and the storm were able to be funded from the MS4, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew that was separated.
Right. Just the storm, MS4 is used for the storm side.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Ettinger?
That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Administration, Councilman Milan.
I have nothing, Mayor.
Okay. Report of solicitor, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing to report is that yesterday council had an executive session. The issues discussed were current litigation as well as negotiations for collective bargaining agreements.
Okay, thank you. Mayor's report. I just want to let you know I had League of Cities, Pennsylvania Municipal League call this morning. We did do a small cell deployment update on House Bill 14 and Senator Brown's bill that he has on these small cells. I did report that Easton had 3 on the zoning hearing board last month and had no problem, went through. 1 is already constructed up on Washington Street, right near the Wilson border. The only thing the league is involved in is trying to get a little bit more money other than $275 a year for everyone that they put in. And of course, this will ultimately be, we came a long way because the state was originally going to preempt us. And they still may preempt the zoning requirement, which I personally don't appreciate. Also, we had an update on Senate Bill 199, which I did tell you about, the robotic delivery. It's coming to Pennsylvania. They're fairly certain that it may even pass next week. It's being pushed by FedEx and all the other delivery people. But the only thing is it did go to PennDOT to determine where these robots can travel on what sidewalks and streets because of congestion. So on the busy streets like Northampton or Berwick or Cattell, you won't have that, or Butler. But PennDOT will be the licensing agency and also overseeing the robots that travel around delivering packages to people's homes. Also, watch for this year in November, we have the budget will be done. The state is looking at a $4 to $5 billion revenue gap like we did. Our $5.5 million was equal to their $5 billion. So legalized recreational marijuana for adults is seriously being considered, and as a way of raising some of that money. So that should come up during the budget sessions in November. The last thing is the emergency tax anticipation note, which we have not used in several years, but the Senate and the House are going to give local municipalities a longer time to pay that back. Normally, a tax anticipation note, a TRAN, tax and revenue anticipation note, would be taken out in like January, February, had to be paid back by the end of the year. They're going to give them, because of COVID, an extra year to pay it back. We're trying to stay away from all that. There's only 4 days left in the session, 3 days next week and November 10th, and then they only go back in late November for the budget. So we're not happy about that. We need help. I had a call this afternoon at 1 o'clock with Senator Casey, and gave us an update on the legislation of COVID. And he's still hoping that something will be done before Election Day, but they too only have next week. And then they break for election season and come back at the end of the year. Right now, the only thing the Senate's worried about is confirming the Supreme Court justice. But he doesn't think there's any serious proposal to date. Senator McConnell has been, I probably have talked to his staff and sent 3 or 4 letters to him personally. He's getting letters from all the mayors across the country. He's very against giving local municipalities additional money. We could use that money to keep people employed, which is certainly not only our goal, but it's the employees' goal too, to keep the economy moving. We think it's very important that they have another payroll protection plan, a 3P, that they're supposed to all be in favor of, but yet we don't see that happening. For small businesses, we know they're bailing out the big ones like the airlines and the cruise lines, but we have a lot of local small businesses that need assistance as well. But Senator Casey, I keep calling him by his dad, Governor. Senator Casey has been a real strong supporter, is a co-sponsor of the bill that would give cities across this country $500 billion. Now, we know that will probably be lessened through compromise if we can get the Republican senators to at least come up to something. Even, I'm not going to give out a number, but even if it's based on the CDBG allocation formula, which is already there, it wouldn't take a lot for them to do that. So we appreciate the CARES Act money that we did get. That money has allowed the city to buy personal protective equipment, has allowed us to do some small business loans and grants to loans. It has allowed us to do some things for the homeless, et cetera. But that is not helping the general fund budget, as you know. It's just helping COVID directly related. For example, those the $300,000 when it cost us to put the employees on furlough. The furloughs employed employees got an additional $600, and that's why we worked it during that time period. That some of them made more than coming back to work. But the fact of the matter is, we don't want to lay them off again next year because we don't know if that money is going to be available. So we're working on that. The last thing I will say before I get to the holiday season in downtown is the city lost a real good supporter. John Robinson was a really neat guy. I've been fortunate enough to know him my entire life, and he had a remarkable career in Washington, D.C., but his love of Easton and the Red Rovers brought him back to town. His business was relocated here. His vision for Black Diamond was apparent. His pride was apparent last week when he had groundbreaking. And I always will remember his comment that, and he's talked about it last week, that, when people say, well, how is it that the blacks, the Jews, the Italians, the Germans, everybody gets along in Easton? And he say, it's in the water. And he was just a guy that I really feel sad that not only in his passing, I really feel sad about his passing, but he's worked for the last 10 years on that project, and to see it come to fruition was one thing, but to actually see it built in housing low and moderate income families and children would be it was his dream. And we went to Harrisburg several times together, and I think the community is going to miss people like him. Last thing I'll mention is what Councilman Volcano talked about, and she's left the meeting. I had two meetings. One was with Bob Freeman and Joe Kelly from Senator Boscola's office with about 20 restaurant/bar owners. And that was a very pointed direction. The Pennsylvania Restaurant Association was there. And I don't know the rhyme or reason. You could sit there and drink at a bar or a restaurant till 11 o'clock at night, but from 11 to 2, you get COVID. I mean, seriously, think about it. The best thing that could happen is to open up our restaurants and bars, because they are responsible for enforcing the CDC guidelines. And if they don't, then they get fined or lose their license. The problem is we're hearing right now is all these house parties. People are going, they're just buying their booze and their beer, and they're going to somebody's house and having 25 or 30 people there, and there's no limits and there's no license to lose. So I did meet with them, and I was there, and obviously the restaurants were very excited and happy about the business recovery plan, although they're going into a cold, as we all know, we're going into the cold season now. But that led us to last week, the meeting that Councilman Volcano was talking about was the Holiday Village event that we're looking to do. Staff is looking to John Kingsley, Dave Hopkins, Lewis. They've all been very, very helpful to me to put this together. We were able to get Home Depot to provide 20 shed-in boxes for a very reduced price, as well as the plywood that's needed at a reduced price. I'm going to look, Jim Ettinger, if you could call me tomorrow, I'd like to talk to you about, we've got to put all these together. So maybe the Carpenters Union, like we got them to do the peace candle 25 years ago, maybe we get them to do some, to help us with a couple guys to put these things together. We also have volunteers. I know Councilman Ruggles has already volunteered. I volunteered, but I can't hit a hammer. That nail will get screwed up somehow. We'll try to do what we can. We're trying to do it so that we get them in place by November 13th. And we have a couple other things that we're working on, and hopefully they come to fruition. That'll make it more of a holiday season downtown, so that the retailers, people will not want to go to the dead malls that have stores after stores after stores that are vacant. They can come down to the 50+ retail stores in downtown Easton, get good service, good quality, and good pricing, and experience the holidays of joyous of being around people, but being socially distanced. So we're looking at that. We'll bring the circle to life with the twinkling lights and the trees. The peace candle will be lit. It'll be a great place to spend a Friday or Saturday downtown without getting too close to people, and hopefully everybody's wearing a mask. So that's it, unless anybody has any questions. Okay, Madam Clerk, we're going to go. There's no correspondence.
Mayor, I have a question for you.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I jumped in there, so. With correspondence.
Madam Clerk, unfinished business?
Mayor,
Oh, Lewis, I'm sorry, I forgot Lewis. Lewis, the city administrator's report.
there's a couple items and some other follow-up. One follow-up issue that Councilman Ruggles brought up. I wanted to make sure we addressed it. But first of all, just to give you an update on the garage, the new garage on 4th Street, the city received preliminary approvals from the Planning Commission, which is a standard approval. At this point, we don't see any issues having the full approval, and expect the garage to continue to move forward. As you all know, that the financing is now also in place. So the next step, big step in the process we'll see is putting the bids out so we can get some pricing. The second item that I wanted to bring up is an item that Dr. Ruggles brought up a few weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, regarding the audit. We do expect potentially an audit to be presented to council at the next council meeting. In addition to that, we'll address the issue that Councilman Ruggles had brought to our attention regarding the timeliness of the audit. I also would like to have the controller in on that discussion since we brought him in the beginning of the year. Mind you, this year was an anomaly, as we all know, with COVID, but we want to make sure we address it and present to you what our intentions were in the beginning of the year pre-COVID. But certainly we had issues, and we're not going to let this go. And we just wanted to make sure that we're following through on that request, Councilman. The next item has to do with Standard & Poor's. The city actually went through a review with Standard & Poor's. We had a credit rating review. That was done on Monday. So to say the least, our weekend was filled with a lot of financial detail and getting our presentation ready. I think it was this past Monday. Maybe it was last
prior.
Yeah, it was last Monday. It was the previous Monday in which we didn't have a weekend. I do want to thank the team that worked on it. Specifically, that was definitely our finance director, Mark, but John Kingsley assisted us. We created a supplemental piece as part of our presentation to really document our economic development efforts. So Mark, John and his team assisted us. And then Dave Hopkins, who also worked on the capital improvement plan for us, which is going to be presented to council, but something that also S&P was requesting from us. The mayor did sit in on the call when we presented to S&P. Those findings should be out also by the next council meeting. If we receive those findings earlier, we will notify council via email. And Mayor, I don't want to necessarily talk about it because there's drafts, et cetera, going on right now by S&P that we had to review, and the S&P is going to publish those findings between now and the next city council meeting. The last item I had was with
the drafts, because I've not even read it, but I will say that I've been on many S&P phone calls with bond ratings, and that was the most positive one I've ever been on. Everything that they told us to do on the last report that we've done, and that certainly looked well. The fact that we're not doing the Da Vinci project and it's a $80 million project flipped to be a taxable property is even better. But I don't expect it to be all roses because obviously we're in the most economically challenging time since 1929, 1930. So, but I would be miffed if we didn't come out with some good reports.
Well, Mayor, I think generally speaking, I can't say how S&P. I mean, you can't take it. You have to really take it with a grain of salt the analyst comments. I mean, I think there's an element of diplomacy and being cordial, if you will, in those types of presentations. But in general, the administration, we did present our plan for the next several years, because obviously S&P wants to know why we're refinancing, so to speak, how we're utilizing the scoop and toss.
He actually, the reviewer actually commended us for doing that scoop and toss, and he said in better times we would not be looking favorably, but this is a good strategy, and he said that, and that means a lot to me because, as you know, I was the one against extending the term, but he was very supportive and complimentary towards it.
And that's amidst, obviously, the COVID backdrop, which every municipality is facing. And then our explanations, just like we've explained to council, our forecasting assumptions for this year, next year, and then the following year, as best we could. So nevertheless, it was a detailed dive, and we'll be presenting those results, obviously, to council as soon as we receive them. The final piece of information that we wanted to acknowledge with council is that Deputy Chief Henning has been made a provisional fire chief or acting fire chief, so to speak. it's not final. It's just in the short run. So we have some continuity and leadership. It's an administrative move that we exercised while we still look for and finalize who the chief is going to be. Right now, we're in a tough position in that between now and the end of the year, if it's not right now acting Chief Hennings who becomes the chief, it would create some manning issues, and we're watching overtime closely, obviously. And I've expressed this to now Henry Hennings. The reason for the acting chief position, and he understands it. So but to that extent, you won't hear any final decisions being made or any more updates until probably closer to the end of the year. Mayor, that's all I have. If council has any questions, I'll feel free to.
Ruggles?
Yes, Louis, I just wanted to back up to the parking garage. I am wondering if the city has done anything as far as coming up with a plan. We're going to be losing a substantial number of parking spaces, and being there at least 2 days a week in that parking lot, I've noticed that a lot of our downtown residents who have parking passes are using that lot currently because we got rid of the one that they probably had been using before. So now in that sense, we're going to be down 2 lots. And I think that that's something that we really need to address and communicate to the public how they might be able to mitigate the loss of all those parking spots.
I'm going to actually defer. I'll defer this to the mayor. That was a question that was brought up during the planning commission meeting.
Okay.
And the mayor did address it, and because it's going to require a council decision here, I'm going to defer it to the mayor. Mayor.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Camus. As you know, Dr. Ruggles, I recommended and city council approved last meeting the elimination of the downtown residential permit parking for $100 a year, unless they already have one. If they're grandfathered, that's fine. If not, they don't. If they're new residents moving in, they don't get it. We're looking to move the people there into the garage, and what I will be doing as part of when the new garage is built is actually giving a discounted rate. I'll be recommending to council a discounted rate that would be for people living in the downtown, parking in the downtown, because most of them are young professionals working during the day. They're not there at the daytime, they're there at night. So we'll do that shared parking like other cities are doing, and maybe it'll be like $45 or $50 a month instead of 70 or 75. And what I plan on doing is putting it in a not a number, but a price below the stated price. So let's say $25 a month savings if you're downtown residents. So if it's $75, it would be $50. If it's $80, it would be $55. So I think we have an obligation to provide parking for our downtown residents. It is a neighborhood. It's becoming more and more of a neighborhood. But when you move downtown, it's better if the landlord gives a parking pass with their apartment. I will say this again, Mark Mulligan, he was the first one to start it, but very few have followed up. He just raised his rent $50 in the Pomeroy building, and everybody gets a monthly pass to the garage. And it's paid for by him. And he gets the volume discount for $50 instead of 70. And it works out really well. Oh my gosh, I just got another text. I'm sorry to tell you. This is just found out that former city councilwoman Josie Small passed away tonight. So she's another one. Josie was a great lady, a real hard worker for the city. And she's been ill the last couple months. So anyway, it's kind of hard. She was a good person.
My concern is primarily, I understand what you're saying, but my concern primarily is during the construction period. we're not going to have that lot. I forget how many actual spaces that is, but it's probably more than 30. And losing those, in addition to losing the ones that are over on North 3rd Street, puts a crunch in where people can park during construction. Once it's built, we're okay.
Before that garage starts to have construction, you'll have the recommendation so that they can use the Pine Street garage at a lesser rate.
Yeah, on that note, the ordinance does give the city administrator and the mayor the ability to do short-term promotional type of purchasing, if you will. So that's something that is within our wheelhouse to make that happen.
I would suggest that we start promoting that early.
Okay.
And so that the public is made well aware of the fact that we're thinking about them and we have a plan for them. Okay. And not wait until, we start breaking ground and say, oh, by the way,
Right. Good point. Good point.
Hey, Louis, will we have the capacity to have the site where they're parking up for the building across from City Hall? Will we have that back?
Well, we will. We will have that back shortly, as Hearst should be receiving their temporary CO shortly. But that really, the 185 South 3rd Street lot, Councilman Brown, was what you're referring to, is not necessarily an everyday user-friendly or retail type of ready parking lot.
Yeah, I know that, but what we did in the past is we use our vehicles over there. We put the city stuff over there, opening up them spaces.
Yeah, no, real good point. I think we're still going to have some bandwidth, just because even Hearst's intention is not to bring in their 170 employees or whatever that number is, north of 100 at one time. It looks like in preliminary discussions with some of their HR team, they're going to be reduced to less than 100% capacity. I just don't know what that number is. And they're going to be rotating, if you will, their employees coming in. I just don't have that detail right now.
Okay.
But I would assume you're right, Mr. Brown, that next June, July, and August, hopefully everything's back to normal and Crayola's busy. We will have to use that lot for them or somebody else, or even just city employees.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's a good point, and duly noted.
Okay, city, Madam Clerk, Chapter 435, Bill number 27.
Okay, that was introduced by Mr. Ettinger on September 23rd, and it's to, wait a minute, I'm sorry, hold on one second. No, Bill 26, that was it. Bill 27, I'm sorry, was introduced by Mayor Pianto, and that was going to amend Chapter 435, the property maintenance and housing standard. I believe you were going to withdraw this one because there's one being introduced a little later.
That is correct. I will withdraw this one. There's one under new business to be introduced.
And then, okay, then under new business, we have Bill 28 that's being introduced by Mr. Milan, which would amend Article 3 of the traffic control map. And it was removing a 15-minute parking pickup in front of 319 Cattell Street and creating a 15-minute parking pickup in front of 323 Cattell Street.
Introduced.
We have Bill number 29 being introduced by Mayor Pianto, which would amend a section in Chapter 435 of the property maintenance and housing standards. It's adding an except rule where a single family, excluding a restroom, detached buildings without a fire alarm system and of 1,000 square feet or less are not required to install a key box.
So introduced.
We have Bill number 30 being introduced by Mayor Pianto, which would be amending sections of Chapter 135 public records. Everything is attached where they had to be changed because the names were in the ordinance. They change very often in the police department, so we're amending that part of the ordinance. I need to introduce, Mayor.
So introduce.
I have Bill number 30 being introduced, I'm sorry, 31 being introduced by Mr. Brown, which would be amending the 2020 City Hall Fund budget. Mr. Brown? I need you to introduce that. Say so introduced.
Introduced.
Thank
I had to
you.
mute myself.
That's okay. All right, I have a resolution being introduced by Mr. Ettinger where council reviewed and approved a 3-year contract with Waste Management, and Mr. Hopkins explained that earlier in the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any
comments, questions, concerns?
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Have we, I know this is a very sore subject, but have we modeled out what it would cost if we were to increase the fees for our constituents by varying numbers to see what we can do to offset the $500,000 increase in this contract?
That would be about, well, there's roughly 8,000 customers, trash customers. So you divide that by 500,000 or 600,000, whatever it is.
So it's about $65 a year?
It's about $6 a month.
Okay. Have we maybe tried to lessen that a little bit by maybe charging them $2 a month?
I did think about that when I put together my budget, and we're still cognizant that the end of the year is a quarter away, and we're hoping that our revenues were conservative and that there will be money that we don't have to make any layoffs. If not, sometime before December 15th, we'll know that answer. And we certainly would be open to that discussion. But at the current time, our trash rates in the city are higher than the highest of anybody in the area. And we just couldn't see putting it up another $60 or $70 a year.
So I guess what I would request though from the administration is that we do model out for different numbers then, for between $1 and $6.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger.
Aye.
We have a resolution being introduced by Mr. Ettinger where we reviewed and approved a 3-year contract with Republic Services of New Jersey, which is actually doing business as Raritan Valley Disposal.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger,
Aye.
Mr. Milan.
Aye.
We have a resolution also being introduced by Mr. Ettinger, which reviewed and approved an agreement with Telco Incorporated, and that's for the installation of decorative streetlight fixtures along the Northampton Street Business District.
So moved.
Second.
Move to second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger,
Aye.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell.
Aye.
We have a resolution also being introduced by Mr. Ettinger, approving a contract with In Situ Form Technologies, and it's for the stormwater rehabilitation at various sites throughout the city. Mr. Hopkins also explained that earlier in the meeting.
So moved.
Moved. Second by Ruggles. Comments, questions? Roll call.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger,
Aye.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles.
Aye.
That's it, Mayor.
At this time, we have public comment on any matter about the city of Easton. Comments, concerns? I see there are 3 attendees. Anybody would like to raise their hand, please raise your hand and we'll recognize you. I don't see any hands going up. If there's any other business becoming for city council, Dr. Ruggles?
I just wanted to ask a question. I'm sorry I didn't hit this at bill number 30. I noticed in that bill, we're designating the clerk as our records officer.
Yes.
but we're taking away the assistant city clerk. We do not have a fallback position there. Should we have included language such as, or their designated representative or something like that? Same thing's true with the police. Well, the police is a lieutenant of record, but so I'm saying there's no fallback positions for those.
I think it's a good point to add it to both of them. We did eliminate the names so that when somebody changes a position, they don't have to redo it.
Right.
But I think that's a good point. If you want to add that, it's only been introduced, you can add that now so that it's on there right tomorrow for Jeremy. We could vote on it as amended tomorrow. I mean, next 2 weeks.
That's correct. If it's introduced today in final form, that'll be fine.
Introduce that.
What verbiage would you like in there?
I think just, or their designated representative. I've seen that in other things, and you could include that after the city clerk and also after the
Lieutenant of Records.
Lieutenant of Records, yeah.
So after the city clerk or their designee and after, okay, where it's specifically listed who it is with the address, phone numbers and so forth.
Yes.
Is that where you want it, Dr. Ruggles?
Yeah, everything else I think is okay.
Okay, I'll make sure, I'll change it tomorrow.
We have to have a vote. Is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second it.
Dave O'Connell seconded it. Roll call of those in favor, not in favor.
Okay, hang on 1 second, please. Okay. Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
And Mayor Panto?
Aye. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Dave's got something.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hopkins, you have something to add?
I just, did you want to mention to council about the update meeting that we were going to do for Center Square?
They know about it. It's already on the agenda.
Okay, never mind. Thank you.
But thank you again. Just as a reminder, the Center Square will be on the agenda for in 2 weeks.
Mayor Panto, I'm sorry, who seconded the amendment for Bill 30?
Dave O'Connell.
Okay, that's what I had. I wasn't sure though. Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question. Our next meeting, is that going to be in chambers? You know yet?
We want to have it in chambers. Mr. Shears brought up a couple issues that we have to, can we get them done by next meeting, Joel? Louis?
We have to address, there's a litany of issues that have to be addressed, including some technological ones. We would have to use the what do you call, the common space areas, the foyers, if you will, on each floor, as extra spaces and put TVs out there. It becomes a little cumbersome. We'll look at it, but it's doubtful unless we do a hybrid, which we think we worked out the issues that we had last night, meaning we'll have council here with staff.
Yeah, but the problem is the public has to see these plans. This is Center Square we're talking about. This isn't, the back of Packer Street or Line Street. This is the middle of the city, the public space. We have to figure, the answer is yes. The question is where. It may have to be at a different location.
I was going to suggest that my wife's church seats 600. So if we follow the governor's guidelines, that means we could put 120 people in there. But I don't know what her answer would be. People scared right now. But I mean, we do have some bigger spaces that I think that we could potentially.
Between now and the weekend, we will figure out where the meeting is going to be, and it should be an in-person meeting, but it may not be able to be in City Hall.
Just remember, if we go somewhere else, we have to check with our solicitor regarding.
Yeah, we're still going to have to do the temperature questionnaire. We're still going to have to do that. There's no doubt about that.
Well,
The broadcasting,
there's other issues with notice then, Mayor, if you change the venue.
Right.
Where Louis was going.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would have to be advertised in the paper, plus, it would have to be on the notice where the packet goes out on for next Friday.
Right. You'll know by Monday.
so is it Pastor Ruggles? We'll have to get her permission.
Well, she would have to take it to her council to get an approval. So, I mean, that can be done.
Right.
That can be done with phone chain. But I mean, I'm just saying that's a space that I think would handle it. And there may be others that are. I don't know of any others that are of that size other than maybe Shiloh.
Oh, that's
Mayor,
not
the
a-
other thing we could do is, we could post any presentation materials on the website for download. And then people could have it, see it, and then hear us explain, exactly what we're doing.
If a well thought out presentation, using Zoom and using the board, I mean, it could work well at, but it's up to council.
All right, we'll have an answer to you by Monday. The motion to adjourn?
So move.
Moved. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Brown. Roll call.
Mr. O'Connell,
aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Milan.
Aye.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Louis,
Mayor.
thank you for your help earlier.
No problem.
Take care.